All right, some massive trades just took place today. We had about 4 or 5 really important, crucial trades for this year's deadline. And I wanted to sort of go over each one of these trades and talk about what it means for the team and for the future of the NBA season, whether it changes the team's whole trajectory or it sort of shifts the offseason. So the most recent trade that just took place, the Los Angeles Lakers are trading Dalton Knecht, Cam Reddish, a 2031 unprotected first-round pick, and a 2030 pick swap to the Charlotte Hornets for center Mark Williams. This one sort of came out of left field, like the Luka Doncic trade. This is a really surprising trade because nobody really thought Mark Williams would be on the market for the Hornets. He's been so good ever since returning back from his injury. He's had multiple 20 and 15 games. He's had a 40-point game basically the other day. He's been playing great in his limited minutes. His defense has been great. He looks athletic still, even after all the injuries he's dealt with. He's been a fantastic center. And to think that the Hornets would give him up was pretty surprising. But when you look at this return, I'm not surprised they traded him. This is a really good return for Mark Williams. And although I'm ranting on about how good he's been, the truth of the matter is he is injury prone. He is a injury-riddled center. Past 3 seasons, he's played 40 games his rookie year, 19 games last year. So far, he's played 19 games, but he's been relatively healthy this season. So it is a risk that the Los Angeles Lakers are taking on, but I think it's a risk worth it, depending on who was available on the market. This is probably the best possible center for the future that you could pair alongside Luka Doncic. Rim running threat, he could finish, he has good touch around the rim, and he's a great defender. He could anchor your defense. He's 7'2". You could put him on some of the top bigs in the league. He probably won't do much because, they are the top bigs, but he could hold his own. It is unfortunate that they did have to give up Dalton Knecht, but if you're trying to get a center like Mark Williams, who, in my opinion, when he does play, he's been a top 12 center in the league. He's been really good. Like, I can't even, speak it into existence how good he's been, especially on a trash Hornets team. He's missed games with LaMelo. Like, LaMelo hasn't played in some games and he still looked great. Now imagine what he could do with Luka Doncic. Giving him Dalton Knecht is unfortunate, but the silver lining is Mark Williams is younger than Dalton Knecht. Mark Williams is 23. Knecht is a few days older, I believe. But the Hornets get a quality young player in Dalton Knecht. He's a sharpshooter. He can fit in the backcourt alongside Ball, although I don't know how good you like that defensively. Neither of them are really good defenders, especially Dalton Knecht. He gets picked on a lot when he's on the court. But, it's worth it. It's a really worth it, especially when you consider the picks involved. You could pair him alongside LaMelo Ball in the backcourt for the future. You get Cam Reddish. This is salary filler. He don't really mean much in this trade. The big prize is the picks. You get their unprotected first-round pick in 2031. Prior to the Luka trade, this was probably considered one of the biggest draft assets in the league. This was probably the most valuable first-round pick in the entire NBA other than the Phoenix picks. And you also got a 2030 pick. So basically this means whichever pick is better, that one goes to the Hornets. And this is a pretty good haul for Mark Williams. You're getting a young player and basically 2 first-round picks. 1 first-round pick, 1 pick swap. You could choose between it. You don't know what the Lakers are going to look like in 6 years. Obviously, with the addition of Luka Doncic, they're probably going to be better. They're not going to be too bad in 2031, I'd assume. But it's worth it to take this risk because you could maybe package that in a trade for another player to pair alongside LaMelo if you really want to. You could trade that away for a sooner pick if you want it, if you don't believe in the Lakers falling apart in the future. Overall, this is a win-win trade for both sides, in my opinion. The Hornets don't have a center anymore. They traded Nick Richards and Mark Williams, but I assume they wouldn't have traded Nick Richards if they knew that this was the offer they're going to get for Mark Williams. I mean, you'd be foolish, in my opinion, if you don't take this offer for a player like Mark Williams. It's a pretty fair trade for both sides. I think I like this for the Hornets a bit more, only because we haven't seen Mark Williams play as much as you'd want. Like I've said, he does have injury history. You don't know if he's going to be healthy for the playoffs or all 82 or for the remaining games you have this season. So you should tread lightly. I expect them to try and get another backup big unless they're comfortable with Jackson Hayes playing the backup. But I'm really excited to see what Mark Williams does alongside Luka Doncic. All right, I'm going to move straight on to the next trade, which was not that, long ago either. This one was about an hour ago, about 30, 40 minutes before the Mark Williams trade. It's Brandon Ingram to the Raptors. Wow, this was a shocker. I thought, the Raptors were trying to tank, but I guess their win streak gave Masai Ujiri a bit of confidence in them trying to make the play-in, which is honestly, I don't know if that's the best decision in the world. But in terms of value, it doesn't get better. So the trade involves Brandon Ingram to the Raptors for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, first rounder, and a second rounder. The first rounder is Indiana's 2026 top 4 protected. So it's not a bad pick at all. So from the Pelicans' point of view, I think this was probably the best trade offer they were going to get. Point blank and simple. I know Brandon Ingram is a tremendously talented player. And if he was healthy, if he wasn't on an expiring contract, you could get multiple first rounders from him and a young player. But the fact of the matter is he hasn't played in 2 months. Nobody knows when he's returning. There hasn't been an update on him in a couple of weeks. And he's on the last year of his deal. Teams are taking a big risk trying to trade for him if they give up a bunch of assets. But Toronto was willing to part ways with a first rounder. I think there's probably no other team that was willing to give up a first rounder for him, if I'm being honest. I mentioned the Detroit Pistons. I thought the Detroit Pistons would be a great fit for Ingram. But I assumed that this trade package was just better, and I'm not surprised the Pelicans accepted it. Bruce Brown Jr. is on an expiring contract, but if he chooses to re-sign with the team, he's a valuable player. He's a quality player. Kelly Olynyk still has this season and next season remaining. Some teams might be interested in him and his shooting ability. I'm not sure. The first round pick is going to convey. It's a 2026 next season's Indiana pick. Top 4 protected unless Indiana completely falls off a cliff. This pick should be between the 18 to 25 range, which is pretty good in a second rounder. Obviously, it's unfortunate that you had to give up Brandon Ingram in this deal, but I like this direction. Buying into, the tank, trying to get Cooper Flag, trying to get the best odds you can, and you don't know if Ingram's going to return at all this season, which is the big thing too. From the Raptors' point of view, I don't really get why they did this trade. I mean, I understand it's a clear talent upgrade. If you do this 10 out of 10 times if it's just on the table, because Ingram is just such a massive upgrade over any of the players in the trade you gave up. But I thought they were tanking. I mean, everybody thought they were tanking. They haven't been winning games. They've been in close games. They just haven't. As of late, they've been winning a bit, though. My goodness, it's been pretty surprising. A lot of people thought they were trying to tank, but we don't know what this really does for them. Are they trying to make a play and push? What are they trying to do? Masai Ujiri is pretty famous for buying low on players and trying to compete when he shouldn't compete. They're the 12 seed. They are about 4 games back from the 10 seed. They could make it in. It looks like the Bulls are going to be worse. A bunch of teams in the East seem like they're going to be worse. So maybe they're trying to make a push, but I don't think it's the best decision. For the Pelicans, I do like this. You get a first rounder. That's all you can really ask for in this trade. So the next trade I wanted to talk about, this was a part of a bigger trade, which we're going to see in a bit. But the biggest trade that I want to talk about is Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors. So it's a bunch of moving pieces in this trade. But the big thing is Andrew Wiggins is going to the Heat alongside Kyle Anderson in a first round pick. Jimmy Butler is going to the Warriors. Value for value, this is as even as a trade I think it gets. I don't know how much better or how much of an upgrade Jimmy Butler is compared to Andrew Wiggins. They both give you very similar things. Jimmy Butler is just a better playmaker, and you just have more sort of reliability on Jimmy Butler. You are more comfortable with him in the playoffs if they are able to make the playoffs. Overall, I don't know if this was the exact level of star they were looking for to pair with Curry, because teams have described the Warriors front office as desperate as a bunch of words, trying to trade or trying to make a big splash for another star to pair alongside Curry. Jimmy Butler fits pretty well. He fits right in with them. Although they are lacking big men, they're still pretty small. Defensively, and especially surrounding Curry, Jimmy Butler is a great player. He's a good defender. He's been worse this season compared to his past seasons, but he is 35 years old. He's a good playmaker. He's hit or miss offensively sometimes, especially this season. He's looked a bit slow, but from what we've seen the past few seasons, you can't count Jimmy Butler out. This is a good trade. It's unfortunate you had to give up Wiggins. You had to give up Schroeder, but you didn't really give up much to get Schroeder in the first place. Kyle Anderson and a protected first-round pick. The protections haven't been revealed, I believe, but I assume it's one of those fake first-rounders. Maybe it's a good one, maybe it's not, depending on that, good haul for the Heat. And he signed an extension with the Warriors, 2 years, $120 million. It's pretty hefty, but that's what you have to pay if you wanted to get Jimmy Butler. I think it's a good deal for both sides. This is a pretty fair trade. I said the Lakers and the Hornets was a fair trade. I think this is probably even more balanced than that. I do think the Warriors got better with this trade. To get a player like Jimmy Butler, especially for the culture that they have there in the sort of team offense, I think it's good, because if you got a guy who focused on getting his own, like Kevin Durant, or say a random name, say somebody like, I can't think right now, say somebody like CJ McCollum, right? They don't fit right in with that offense, but Jimmy Butler, in my opinion, does. He could play with the ball, play off the ball, do a lot of things. I think the Heat got a good haul, depending on the protections on that first round pick. Getting a pick for Butler in general is pretty impressive, considering, a lot of the issues he's had. He won't re-sign with teams. Him having disgusting behavior on his way out from 3 different teams, the Bulls, the Wolves, and the Heat now. It's a pretty big risk for any team, especially for a team who has Draymond Green in their locker room. They might just punch each other next practice. All right, next trade I wanted to talk about. Let's see if we could go down. It's the Pelicans trade. They trade Daniel Theis and draft compensation to the Oklahoma City Thunder. OKC didn't give up anything in this trade. This is a great trade for them. You get a backup big. You don't need an elite center. You really don't. Getting Daniel Theis is enough. He rebound the ball, pass the ball, finish layups. That's all you need from a big if you're playing in OKC. Rebound the ball, pass the ball to Shea, and finish layups if he passes it to you. It's important for the Thunder to get an extra body, and they got draft compensation. Sam Presti is a wizard. This isn't, it doesn't move the needle, in my opinion, but it's just, especially in the closing season, as they come to an end, they're basically locked up the first seed. There's nobody really coming close to them. Maybe the last 10, 15 games, they got Daniel Theis to play those games, keep their players healthy, slowly work Chet into the lineup. It's important because sometimes Isaiah Hartenstein is out. They're running J-Dub at the center. They're running Jalen Williams at the center. J-Will. They had a rookie Brendan Carlton running the center for a bit. So it's a great trade. Another trade is Jaden Springer and a 2030 second rounder to the Houston Rockets. Both teams are also exchanging heavily protected second rounders. Great trade for the Rockets. Jaden Springer is a really good defender. In the minutes he's played, he single-handedly won that OT game against, I forget which team he played against, but he single-handedly won them that game with his defense. And he's been really good, and adding him to a defensive-oriented team like the Rockets is pretty good. He probably won't see the floor, but in general, just getting a second-round pick in this trade is a good deal with for the Houston Rockets, even especially since they gave up nothing. Next trade, this is a controversial one right here. The Milwaukee Bucks are trading Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, and a pick swap to the Washington Wizards for Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and second-round draft compensation. Later on, they added that Jericho Sims and DeLon Wright were part of this trade. Jericho Sims, I believe, is going to the Bulls, or going to the Bucks, and DeLon Wright is heading to the Knicks. So, this trade is, I didn't like it at first. for the Bucks. I think it's a very clear talent downgrade, trading Middleton for Kyle Kuzma. But when you look into like the specifics of the trade, I see why they did it. Chris Middleton is expensive. He's making $40 million a year. He puts them over the second apron. You have Giannis on a max, Dame on a max, Chris Middleton on a max. They're paying a lot of money to 3 different players. I think Middleton is pretty comfortably better than Kyle Kuzma. Better shooter, better passer, better defender. Kyle Kuzma has been terrible. He has been terrible this season. He is shooting 42% from the field, 28% from 3. Some of his interviews have been absolutely horrific with some of the answers he's given. And overall, I think he's just worse than Chris Middleton. Obviously, last season he was really good. He played well last season, shot well from 3, was a good passer, average defender. So you question why would the Bucks do this trade? Getting Kyle Kuzma, who only makes about $25 million a year, puts them under the second apron. It gives them more flexibility in moves they can make. They are unable to aggregate contracts. They can't trade, say, Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez together. They have to trade one or the other. 1-for-1 picks, or they have to trade a high contract player like Middleton for multiple players. In this deal, you get Kyle Kuzma. You free yourself up quite a bit for some more financial flexibility to make further trades maybe tomorrow, or maybe they are saving themselves for the offseason. I'm not sure. Kyle Kuzma isn't too big of a downgrade either from Middleton, which is why it's not a bad trade for either. And for the Wizards, W. You got rid of Kyle Kuzma. Oh my goodness, what a massive W. Bilal Coulibaly could run free. Bob Carrington could run free. Oh my, you got rid of him. That's the biggest W you could possibly have. And you got to pick swap as well in this trade. I doubt it might convey. You're probably going to be bad for another 2-3 seasons, but it's pretty worth it. You got a vet in that locker room too who you could trade down the line, or you could buy out. I don't think you could buy him out though. He makes too much money. But overall, a good trade for both sides. Now for the last trade that we have to discuss, this happened last night. It's Quentin Grimes and a second round pick to the Sixers for Caleb Martin. When I saw this trade, I was confused. Really, really confused. A lot of Mavs fans were confused. I was confused. Everybody was confused. You're trading a 24-year-old Quentin Grimes who can shoot the ball at a 40% clip. He's shooting about 39.8%. Plays great defense, could pass decently, fits right in with all your players on the team, whether it's at the shooting guard, maybe some small forward minutes. For Caleb Martin, who I think is having a worse season than Quentin Grimes. He's shooting worse, he's averaging less points, and I think in my opinion, he has a bigger role there in Philadelphia. I didn't like this trade at all for Dallas. And you also gave up a second rounder to get an older and I think worse player. Caleb Martin is taller. He does play a bit bigger. He does provide a bit more versatile defensively. But I don't think you should trade a player like Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin. At the end of the day, I understand why the trade happened. You could slot in Caleb Martin at shooting guard, small forward, power forward. He fits in perfectly. He could play alongside AD and Gafford. He could play alongside just AD. He could play alongside just Gafford. He could play right next to Kyrie if you need him to. But Quentin Grimes was giving you something that, a lot of players don't really give. I guess they were more comfortable trading for him after seeing what Max Christie's able to do. But the trade happened before the game. But I guess I'm more comfortable with it. I feel a little bit better about it for the Max Christie trade. I think it was a good trade for Philadelphia. They get a younger player who they could slot in and a second round pick. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all we have to talk about. Man, what an eventful day. It's not even a trade deadline yet. We got about 15 more hours left of trades. And I hope I could be, right on top of these trades. This deadline especially. It's been a crazy, crazy deadline. One of the craziest deadlines in NBA history. Maybe in sports history, to be honest. This is so crazy. But we had a lot of winners and a lot of losers today. Today was a bit more balanced in terms of trades. Unlike the two blockbusters that we had the past few days. But I'm excited for what happens tomorrow. I expect to see more moves tomorrow. But man, what a deadline.